The empty chair sat in the middle of the great hall like a wound that would not heal. Ambassador Jake Morrison had occupied that seat for 12 years, and now it remained vacant for 3 months. The other members of the Galactic Council tried to ignore the human section, but their eyes kept drifting back to the empty space where Earth's representative once sat. Chairman Veltar adjusted his ceremonial robes and called the morning session to order. His blue skin showed the stress marks that had appeared since the humans left without warning. The Xanthari leader had grown used to Jake's calm voice offering solutions when debates grew heated. Now the council chamber felt different and wrong. Captain Lisa Harper had been the last human to leave council space. The security recordings showed her final moments on Citadel Station. She walked through the corridors with purpose, while her crew loaded the last supplies onto their ship. Other species watched from doorways as the humans packed their belongings into metal boxes. No one asked questions because no one thought the departure was permanent. The message had been simple and cold. It appeared on every communication screen, in council space, at exactly the same time. The words burned into alien memories like a brand on flesh. Humanity withdraws from galactic affairs. Do not follow. There was no signature and no explanation. Within 6 hours, every human had vanished from council territory. Dr. Elena Rodriguez left her laboratory on the research station orbiting Kepler, Prime. Her work on the Thraxi plague cure was almost complete, but she sealed her files with encryption that no alien could break. The Thraxi delegation had begged her to stay, but she shook her head and walked away. Her last words were that they had everything they needed to finish the work themselves. The Korthak Empire representatives celebrated openly when they learned of humanity's departure. War Commander Throck laughed until his mandibles clicked together, in satisfaction. He had lost 3 major battles to human forces, and now saw opportunity in their absence. The humans had always stood between the Korthak and their rightful expansion across the galaxy. Ambassador Silandra of the Silvani Confederacy felt relief wash over her like cool water. The humans had always made her feel small with their quick thinking and strange solutions to complex problems. Their technology advanced too fast, and their military grew too strong. Now the galaxy could return to proper order with the ancient races leading as they should. The Miadari delegates whispered, among themselves in their musical language. They had always found humans too aggressive for their peaceful nature. The way humans solved problems with force made the plant-like beings uncomfortable. They believed the galaxy would be more harmonious without human influence. Nick Campbell had served as the chief human mediator for border disputes. His office files contained detailed reports on every potential conflict zone in council space. The aliens found his office empty except for a single note on his desk. The note listed 17 different crisis scenarios that could develop without proper mediation. Most council members dismissed it as human paranoia. The trade routes that connected the galaxy had been protected by human patrol ships for decades. Captain Ryan Turner commanded the largest human fleet assigned to anti-piracy operations. His ships had kept the shipping lanes clean through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. The day after his departure, pirate attacks increased by 30%. Chief Engineer Amy Stone had designed the maintenance systems for most major space stations in Council territory. Her protocols kept life support running and prevented catastrophic failures that could kill millions. She left detailed instruction manuals, but warned that the systems required human-level precision to operate safely. Dr. Kevin Martinez worked on advanced communication technology that promised to revolutionize galactic coordination. His prototype could send messages across the galaxy in minutes instead of months. He took his research with him but left behind calculations that suggested the project was nearly complete. The council members told themselves that humanity's departure was temporary. They believed the humans would return when they realized their mistake. Some thought it was a negotiating tactic to gain better terms in trade agreements. Others assumed the humans had suffered some internal crisis that forced them to consolidate their resources. Chairman Veltar reviewed the Council's relationship with humanity over the past 50 years. The humans had joined as a junior member, but quickly became essential to galactic operations. They provided military protection, technological innovation, medical research, and diplomatic solutions. The other species had grown dependent on human capabilities without realizing it. The empty chair seemed to mock the Council's assumptions about their own importance. Jake Morrison had warned them about emerging threats and suggested preparations for various scenarios. His warnings were filed away and largely ignored because the other species thought humans saw danger everywhere. Captain Lisa Harper's ship was the last to leave human-controlled space. Long-range sensors tracked her vessel until it reached the edge of known territory. Then the ship simply vanished from all detection systems as if it had never existed. The aliens assumed this was normal human stealth technology. 3 months passed, and the Council received no word from humanity. All attempts to contact human worlds met with silence. Trade ships that approached human space found their communications blocked and their sensors unable to penetrate some kind of barrier. The humans had not just left Council space, but had sealed themselves away from the galaxy entirely. The empty chair remained as the only evidence that humanity had ever been part of galactic civilization. Soon, the Council would learn that losing the humans was not an inconvenience, but a catastrophe that would destroy everything they had built together. The first reports of trouble came from the Outer Rim territories 6 months after humanity's departure. Cargo ships started disappearing along routes that had been safe for decades. Pirate attacks increased so rapidly that insurance companies stopped covering vessels traveling through previously secure sectors. The alien merchants finally understood why human patrol ships had been so heavily armed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's encrypted files became the center of a crisis when the Thraxii plague returned with deadly force. The purple-skinned aliens had celebrated their independence from human medical assistance until their people started dying again. The plague spread faster than before, and their own doctors could not recreate the human cure. Every attempt to break Rodriguez's encryption failed, and thousands died while computers tried to crack her codes. The Silvani Confederacy faced their worst nightmare when Korthak battle fleets massed near their border systems. War Commander Throck positioned 3 full armadas in strategic locations that human intelligence had identified as vulnerable points. For years, Nick Campbell had mediated disputes between these two powers and prevented exactly this kind of military buildup. Without human diplomats to enforce peace treaties, the old hatreds surfaced like poison in an open wound. Trade hub Vega Station suffered its first major system failure when Chief Engineer Amy Stone's maintenance protocols were not followed correctly. The alien technicians thought they understood human engineering but missed critical details in the complex systems. A cascade failure in the power grid left 50,000 beings stranded without life support for 18 hours. Emergency crews worked frantically to restore basic functions, while the station slowly died around them. Admiral Ryan Brooks had left behind detailed intelligence reports about every known threat in Council space. His files contained early warning signs of pirate organization, hostile alien movements, and potential terrorist activities. The Council discovered these reports too late when the predicted threats began materializing exactly as Brooks had warned. The humans had not been paranoid, but had simply been paying attention. Captain Lauren Hayes commanded the Deep Space Monitoring Station that watched for threats from outside the galaxy. Her final report mentioned strange signals detected at the edge of known space, but the Council had classified her findings as low priority. Now those same signals were getting stronger and moving closer to inhabited systems. The monitoring station went dark 3 weeks after Hayes departed, and no alien crew could restart its complex sensors. The Midari faced extinction as desperate. Civilizations raided their agricultural worlds for food supplies. The peaceful plant beings had relied entirely on human defense satellites and emergency response systems. Without maintenance, these protective systems failed one by one until the Miyadari worlds lay helpless before raiders who saw easy targets. Their pacifist nature prevented them from building their own military forces. Pirate fleets grew bolder as they realized human patrol ships would not appear to stop their raids. Captain Ryan Turner's anti-piracy tactics had kept criminal organizations weak and scattered. Now these groups united under stronger leadership and began conquering territory, instead of just stealing cargo. Entire star systems fell under pirate control, as alien defense forces proved inadequate against human-trained criminals. The Zenthari attempted to replicate human medical technology, but their crude efforts created more problems than solutions. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had developed regenerative nanobots that could heal almost any injury. The Zenthari reverse-engineered captured samples, but their versions attacked healthy tissue instead of repairing damage. Their hospitals filled with victims of their own failed technology. Communication across the galaxy slowed to a crawl without Dr. Kevin Martinez's advanced relay systems. His prototype communication network had connected the major worlds with near-instantaneous messaging. The old systems took weeks to send messages between distant sectors, and coordination of any large-scale response became nearly impossible. The Council found itself unable to respond quickly to developing crises. Border conflicts erupted throughout Council space as species competed for resources that human-managed trade networks had previously distributed fairly. The complex agreements that Nick Campbell had negotiated began falling apart without neutral arbitration. Ancient territorial disputes reignited, and small wars broke out across dozens of star systems. Chief Engineer Amy Stone's maintenance manuals proved too complex for alien technicians to follow properly. Human engineering required precision and understanding that other species had not developed. Critical infrastructure began failing throughout Council space as systems designed by human minds broke down under alien mismanagement. Space elevators collapsed and orbital factories went offline as cascading failures spread. The Korthak Empire tested Council defenses with small raids that human forces would have stopped immediately. Admiral Ryan Brooks had positioned human fleets to respond to exactly these kinds of probing attacks. Without human military doctrine, the alien fleets responded too slowly and with predictable tactics that Korthak commanders easily countered. Dr. Kevin Martinez's research notes revealed that his communication system was designed to coordinate responses to galactic-scale emergencies. His calculations showed that without faster communication, the Council would be unable to mount effective defense against large-scale threats. The aliens began to understand that human technology was not just advanced, but was specifically designed to solve problems they had not even recognized. Captain Lisa Harper's final flight logs mentioned preparations for something called Operation Sanctuary. The references were vague, but suggested that humanity had been planning their departure for years. Her notes indicated that the humans had tried to warn the Council about approaching threats, but had been ignored or dismissed as fearmongers. The Council emergency sessions grew longer and more desperate as reports of failure arrived from across the galaxy. Chairman Veltar found himself longing for Jake Morrison's calm presence and practical solutions. The human ambassador had never claimed to have all the answers, but he had always known the right questions to ask. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was falling apart. The Council members finally admitted that they had made a terrible mistake, but their pride prevented them from acknowledging how dependent they had become on human expertise. They told themselves that the crisis was temporary and that alien ingenuity would find solutions. They were wrong, and the worst was yet to come. 1 year after humanity's silent departure, the galaxy burned with the fires of war, and the screams of the dying echoed across space. The Korthak Empire had conquered 4 star systems in a brutal campaign that showed no mercy to civilian populations. War Commander Throck led his fleets with the confidence of a predator who knew his prey was helpless. Without human peacekeeping forces to stop them, the Korthak moved like a plague across the galaxy. The Rim Wars had claimed over 2 million lives, as former allies turned their weapons on each other in desperate fights for resources. Species that had traded peacefully for centuries now battled over mining rights and agricultural worlds. The complex economic system that human administrators had managed collapsed into chaos as every civilization tried to grab what they could. Before their neighbors did the same, Chief Engineer Amy Stone's maintenance protocols were failing throughout Council space, and critical infrastructure crumbled like sandcastles in a storm. The massive trade hub at Vega Station suffered a catastrophic containment breach when alien technicians made a fatal error in the fusion reactor systems. The explosion killed over 800,000 beings in seconds and left the station as twisted metal drifting through space. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's plague cure research remained locked behind encryption that no alien could break, while the Thraxi civilization faced complete extinction. The purple-skinned people died by the millions, as the plague spread faster than their medical facilities could handle. Their cities became graveyards, and their once proud culture faced annihilation because they could not replicate human medical knowledge. The peaceful Miadari found themselves helpless against raiders who saw their agricultural worlds as easy targets. Their defense satellites had gone dark months ago without human maintenance, and their pacifist nature prevented them from building weapons to protect themselves. Entire worlds were stripped bare by desperate pirates, while the plant-like beings could only watch in horror as their civilization was consumed. Captain Lauren Hayes had been working on defenses against something she called the Void Stalkers before humanity's departure. Her warnings about extragalactic threats were buried in classified files that the Council had ignored as human paranoia. Now, strange signals appeared at the edge of known space and moved closer to inhabited systems with each passing day. The deep space monitoring stations that could have tracked these threats remained offline because no alien could operate their complex systems. Dr. Kevin Martinez's faster-than-light communication project sat incomplete in his abandoned laboratory, while the galaxy fell apart from lack of coordination. His prototype could have allowed instant communication across the entire galaxy, but the alien scientists who examined his work found equations too complex for their understanding. Without his expertise, the project remained tantalizingly close to completion, but forever out of reach. The Silvani Confederacy mobilized their entire fleet to face the approaching Korthak invasion, but their ancient military doctrine proved useless against modern warfare. Admiral Ryan Brooks had revolutionized galactic military thinking with his tactical innovations, but the aliens reverted to their old strategies that were predictable and ineffective. Korthak forces cut through Silvani defenses like a blade through paper. Pirate organizations that had been scattered and weak under human pressure now controlled entire sectors of space. Captain Ryan Turner's anti-piracy operations had kept these criminals divided and desperate, but his departure allowed them to unite under powerful leaders. The pirates used human weapons and tactics they had learned as prisoners or refugees to build fleets that rivaled national navies. The Zenthari plague spread across 3 worlds as their failed attempts to replicate human medical technology turned their own nanobots into weapons against their population. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had spent years perfecting the delicate balance needed for regenerative medicine, but the aliens created crude imitations that attacked healthy tissue and bone. Their hospitals became houses of horror as their own technology consumed their people from within. Chairman Veltar convened emergency sessions of the Council but found himself leading meetings of desperate beings who had no solutions to offer. The grand hall felt empty without human voices contributing practical ideas and realistic assessments. Jake Morrison's empty chair had become a symbol of everything the Council had lost when they drove away the one species that could have saved them. Long-range scouts reported that the barrier around human space had grown stronger and more impenetrable. Ships that approached the boundary found their instruments failing and their communications cut off as if they were entering a dead zone in space. The humans had not just isolated themselves, but had created technology that made their territory invisible to alien sensors. Dr. Marcus Bell's theoretical papers on dimensional technology suggested that humanity possessed the ability to fold space around their worlds. The implications terrified the few alien scientists who could understand his calculations because it meant humans could remove themselves from the galaxy entirely if they chose. The technology that could create such barriers was beyond anything the Council had imagined possible. The Korthak advance reached the core worlds of the Silvani Confederacy, and their ancient capital fell after a siege that lasted only 3 days. War Commander Throck broadcast his victory to the galaxy and announced that the Korthak Empire would bring order to the chaos that followed humanity's departure. His forces used captured human weapons and ships to overwhelm defenses that had not been updated since humans stopped sharing their military innovations. Trade routes that had connected the galaxy for centuries became death traps as pirates and raiders made travel between systems nearly impossible. The complex logistics network that human administrators had managed collapsed when alien bureaucrats proved unable to maintain the delicate balance of supply and demand across thousands of worlds. Emergency communications from across the galaxy flooded into Council headquarters, but the alien communication systems were too slow to coordinate any effective response. Dr. Kevin Martinez's advanced relay network could have connected every world in real time, but his departure left the galaxy blind and deaf to its own destruction. The Council finally admitted that they needed humanity's help, but all attempts to contact human space met with complete silence. The species they had dismissed as too aggressive and paranoid had become their only hope for survival, but the humans were gone and would not answer their desperate calls for assistance. 1 year after humanity's departure, the galaxy faced complete collapse, and the worst was yet to come. 18 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced complete collapse as half the member species were at war and the other half struggled to survive the breakdown of civilized society. Chairman Veltar looked older than his 200 years as he presided over emergency sessions where desperate delegates begged for solutions that no one could provide. The great dream of galactic unity had become a nightmare of violence and chaos. The Zenthari made a catastrophic attempt to reverse-engineer human medical technology that resulted in a plague spreading across 3 worlds. Dr. Claire Watson had developed regenerative nanobots that could heal almost any injury, but the alien scientists created crude copies that turned against their creators. The nanobots consumed healthy tissue and bone, while spreading through the air like a virus. Zenthari cities became charnel houses where the living envied the dead. President Victoria Cross had left behind diplomatic contingency plans for 17 different crisis scenarios in her sealed office on Citadel Station. As each crisis unfolded exactly as she had predicted, the Council realized that humans had not just been reacting to galactic events, but had been anticipating and preventing them for decades. Her plans detailed the cascade failures that would follow if human systems were removed without proper replacement. The Korthak Empire reached the core worlds of civilized space as their fleets steamrolled through alien defenses that followed predictable patterns. War Commander Throck used tactical doctrines he had learned from studying human military methods during their brief alliance. Admiral Sam Parker had defeated Throck at the Battle of Rigel, using innovative strategies that broke conventional military thinking, but now those same innovations worked against the aliens who could not adapt. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's plague cure remained locked behind encryption that grew stronger with each failed attempt to break it. The Thraxii population had dropped to less than 10 million survivors scattered across refugee ships that wandered the galaxy, seeking worlds that would accept plague carriers. Their once mighty civilization had been reduced to beggars fleeing, the disease that consumed their people because they could not replicate human medical expertise. The massive orbital city of New Geneva suffered a containment breach in its fusion core when alien engineers failed to follow Chief Engineer Amy Stone's safety protocols. 800,000 beings died in the explosion that could be seen from 3 star systems away. The disaster highlighted how dependent galactic civilization had become on human engineering expertise that no other species could replicate. Captain Lauren Hayes had commanded joint human-alien task forces responsible for monitoring extragalactic threats, and her early warning systems now lay dormant and useless. The void stalkers she had detected at the edge of known space grew bolder in their approach to inhabited systems. Strange ships appeared on long-range sensors, but without human technology to track them properly, the aliens could not determine their intentions or capabilities. In desperation, the Council authorized a deep space expedition to locate humanity and beg for their return. Captain Velnara of the Silvani fleet led 3 ships toward the last known human trajectories, but what they found defied all understanding. The region of space where humanity had vanished was surrounded by some kind of barrier that made their instruments fail and their communications cut out, as if they had entered a void in reality itself. Dr. Marcus Bell's theoretical papers on dimensional technology suggested that humanity had found a way to fold space around their territory and remove themselves from normal reality. The calculations were beyond alien understanding, but the implications were terrifying because it meant humans possessed technology so advanced they could effectively erase themselves from the galaxy at will. The species the aliens had dismissed as primitive had transcended their understanding of physics. Engineer Tony Mitchell had designed quantum stabilizers that kept dozens of inhabited space stations operational in the dangerous regions near black holes and neutron stars. Without maintenance, these stations became death traps as their protective systems failed one by one. The research station orbiting the pulsar PSR 7749 lost containment and was crushed by gravitational forces that killed 15,000 researchers in seconds. The Mayadari faced extinction as their agricultural worlds were stripped bare by raiders who saw the peaceful plant beings as easy prey. Their entire civilization was built around harmony with nature, but this philosophy offered no protection against pirates who killed without mercy. Mayadari refugees filled cargo ships and transport vessels as they fled their dying worlds with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Trade had collapsed completely as pirate fleets controlled most shipping lanes and made commerce between worlds nearly impossible. Captain Ryan Turner's anti-piracy operations had maintained a delicate balance that kept criminal organizations weak and divided, but his departure allowed them to unite under powerful leaders who used human weapons and tactics to build empires in space. The Council discovered that humans had been quietly preventing dozens of potential disasters through careful planning and technological intervention. President Victoria Cross's files revealed that humanity had been the immune system of galactic civilization, identifying and neutralizing threats before they could spread. Without human oversight, the galaxy had lost its ability to heal itself and was dying from infections that would have been easily treatable. Communication delays across the galaxy made coordination impossible as the old relay systems proved inadequate for managing large-scale crises. Dr. Kevin Martinez's prototype communication network could have connected every world in real time, but his research remained incomplete in his abandoned laboratory. Alien scientists stared at his equations like savages looking at quantum computers, unable to bridge the gap between their understanding and his genius. The few surviving council members finally grasped the magnitude of their loss as they reviewed decades of human contributions to galactic society. Humans had not just been another member species, but had become the foundation upon which everything else was built. Their departure was not abandonment, but amputation as the galaxy cut away its own ability to survive and prosper. Ambassador Jake Morrison's personal logs revealed the truth that alien pride had refused to acknowledge. Humanity had repeatedly warned the Council about every crisis now devastating the galaxy, but their advice was dismissed as paranoia, and their expertise questioned as manipulation. The final insult came when the Council voted to reduce human influence in galactic affairs just weeks before humanity's silent departure. As alien civilizations faced extinction, they finally understood what humans had been trying to teach them. The galaxy was a dangerous place, filled with threats that required strength, vigilance, and the willingness to make hard choices to survive. Humans had not been warmongers, but had been the only species mature enough to face reality without flinching. The empty chair in the council chamber had become a monument to galactic arrogance and the price of losing the one species that could have saved them all. 2 years after humanity's silent departure, the galaxy resembled a graveyard of broken dreams and shattered civilizations. The Galactic Council officially dissolved as the few surviving member species retreated to protect their remaining worlds from the chaos that consumed everything they had built together. Chairman Veltar signed the final dissolution decree with hands that trembled from age and despair, knowing that he had presided over the end of the greatest experiment in galactic cooperation. The Thraxii civilization that had once numbered in the billions was reduced to scattered refugee fleets that wandered the galaxy like ghosts seeking a home. Their purple-skinned people died by the thousands each day as the plague Dr. Elena Rodriguez could have cured spread through their overcrowded ships. No world would accept them because the disease they carried meant death for any species that came into contact with them. They drifted through space as living monuments to the price of rejecting human medical expertise. Engineer Tony Mitchell's quantum stabilizers failed throughout the galaxy as alien technicians proved unable to maintain the complex systems that kept dozens of space stations operational. The massive research facility orbiting the black hole Charybdis lost containment when its gravitational shields collapsed and 800,000 beings were stretched into atomic particles in the space of a heartbeat. The station had been humanity's greatest engineering achievement, and its destruction marked the end of an era. Captain Rachel Brooks had commanded the Joint Human-Alien Task Force responsible for monitoring extragalactic threats, but her early warning systems now lay silent and useless. The Void Stalkers moved closer to inhabited space with each passing day, and their scout ships began appearing at the edge of former Council territory. Without human technology to track these intruders properly, the surviving aliens could only watch helplessly as something ancient and hungry approached their dying civilization. The Korthak Empire controlled most of the former Council space, but even their victory felt hollow as they inherited a galaxy in ruins. War Commander Throck discovered that conquest was meaningless when there was nothing left worth conquering. The trade networks that had made the galaxy prosperous were destroyed, and the technological infrastructure that supported billions of beings lay in smoking ruins. He had won a war, but lost a civilization. The few surviving council members gathered one final time in the ruins of Citadel Station to attempt contact with humanity. They used Dr. Kevin Martinez's incomplete communication system to punch a signal through the barrier surrounding human space, but the effort required all their remaining resources. The message they sent was simple and desperate. "We were wrong. Please help us. We are dying and we need you." Ambassador Jake Morrison's sealed quarters were finally opened, and the aliens found personal logs that revealed the depth of human frustration with galactic politics. Morrison had spent 12 years trying to convince the Council that cooperation required sacrifice and that survival demanded difficult choices. His final entries spoke of humanity's growing isolation as alien species dismissed human warnings as fear-mongering and rejected human solutions as too extreme. The Miadari extinction was swift and complete as the last of their agricultural worlds fell to raiders who showed no mercy to the peaceful plant beings. Their pacifist philosophy had created a beautiful civilization, but offered no protection against pirates who saw weakness as opportunity. The galaxy lost their gentle wisdom and their gift for growing food in the harshest environments because they could not defend themselves without human protection. Dr. Claire. Watson's medical research had been the foundation for treatments that saved millions of lives throughout the galaxy, but her nanobots turned against their creators when aliens tried to replicate her work. The Zenthari plague spread to 7 worlds, before the infected populations were completely consumed by their own medical technology. Hospitals became slaughterhouses where healing machines devoured the patients they were designed to save. The dimensional barrier around human space grew stronger and more impenetrable, as if humanity was sealing itself away from the galaxy forever. Captain Velnara's expedition ships found that approaching the barrier caused their crews to experience hallucinations and system failures that forced them to retreat or risk destruction. Whatever technology humanity had developed was beyond alien comprehension and seemed to operate on principles of physics that other species had never discovered. President Victoria Cross's contingency plans proved prophetic, as every disaster she had predicted came to pass with mathematical precision. Her files revealed that humanity had been quietly managing 17 different potential extinction events that could have destroyed galactic civilization at any time. Without human oversight, these threats multiplied and combined until they created a cascade of failures that no alien species could stop or even understand. The survivors of the galactic collapse finally acknowledged what they had lost when they drove humanity away. Humans had not been just another member species, but had become the nervous system of galactic civilization. They had been the early warning system that detected threats, the immune response that neutralized dangers, and the healing mechanism that repaired damage before it could spread. Their departure left the galaxy paralyzed and defenseless against forces it could no longer comprehend. Trade routes that had connected thousands of worlds for centuries became hunting grounds for pirates, who used human weapons and tactics to build criminal empires. Captain Ryan Turner's anti-piracy operations had maintained the delicate balance between law and chaos, but his absence allowed criminal organizations to unite under leaders who understood warfare better than the aliens who tried to stop them. The orbital cities that housed billions of beings became death traps as Chief Engineer Amy Stone's safety systems failed without proper maintenance. New Geneva's destruction was followed by similar disasters at Port Royal, Babylon Station, and Freedom Point, as cascading failures destroyed the engineering marvels that had taken centuries to build. Each explosion took hundreds of thousands of lives and represented the loss of irreplaceable knowledge and technology. Communication across the galaxy slowed to a crawl as Dr. Kevin Martinez's advanced relay network remained incomplete in his abandoned laboratory. The old systems took months to send messages between distant sectors and made coordination of any response impossible. The surviving worlds became isolated islands in an ocean of chaos, unable to share resources or coordinate defenses against the threats that consumed them one by one. As the galaxy died around them, the few remaining aliens finally understood the lesson humanity had tried to teach them. Civilization was not a natural state, but a fragile achievement that required constant vigilance and sacrifice to maintain. The universe was hostile to life and intelligence, and survival demanded the wisdom to recognize threats and the courage to face them regardless of the cost. The empty chair in the ruined council chamber stood as a monument to galactic arrogance and the price of losing the one species that had possessed both the knowledge and the will to keep them all alive. 3 years after humanity's departure, the Void Stalkers began their invasion in earnest as massive ships emerged from the darkness between galaxies and swept toward the dying remnants of Council space. The few surviving alien fleets were no match for technology that operated on principles beyond their understanding. Captain Lauren Hayes had tried to warn them about this threat, but her reports had been dismissed as human paranoia until it was far too late to prepare any meaningful defense. The desperate signal that the Council had sent through Dr. Kevin Martinez's incomplete communication system finally received an answer that shocked the survivors to their core. A simple message appeared on their screens throughout what remained of civilized space, transmitted on frequencies that should have been impossible to reach. The words were signed by Director Ashley Parker of the Human Strategic Command, and they changed everything the aliens thought they knew about humanity's departure. We know. We have been watching. We have been preparing. The revelation hit the surviving council members like a physical blow as they realized that humanity had not fled in anger or retreated in defeat. The humans had withdrawn to prepare for the very threats that were now destroying galactic civilization. While alien species had bickered over territory and trade rights, humanity had been building an ark for the survivors of the coming storm. The message continued with details that made the aliens question everything they thought they understood about human capabilities. The Void Stalkers were revealed to be advanced scouts of something called the Devourer Swarm, an extragalactic intelligence that consumed entire galaxies as it spread across the universe. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had detected their approach 7 years before humanity's departure, but the Council had voted to reduce human military presence as unnecessary paranoia. Commander Steve Taylor emerged as the architect of humanity's exodus, and his message explained the true scope of what the humans had accomplished. They had not abandoned the galaxy, but had created a refuge for its survivors using dimensional technology that Dr. Marcus Bell had developed in secret. The pocket universe they had created could shelter the remnants of galactic civilization, while the Devourer Swarm passed through their reality like a plague of cosmic locusts. But entry to this sanctuary came with conditions that struck at the heart of alien pride. Species had to acknowledge that humanity's warnings had been correct and that their own arrogance had doomed their civilizations. They had to accept human leadership in the fight against the swarm and abandon the politics and prejudices that had made galactic cooperation impossible. Most difficult of all, they had to admit that humanity had been trying to save them from themselves. The few million survivors of dozens of alien civilizations faced an impossible choice as Void Stalker. Fleets swept through the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. They could swallow their pride and accept humanity's protection, or they could face extinction with their dignity intact. For most species, the choice was simple, because death offered no consolation for wounded egos. Chairman Veltar was among the first to broadcast acceptance of human terms as the Zenthari homeworld fell to the advancing swarm. His proud people had been reduced to refugee ships fleeing the nanobots they had created in their failed attempts to replicate human technology. The irony was not lost on him that they needed human mercy to survive the consequences of rejecting human wisdom. The dimensional barrier around human space opened to admit refugee ships that carried the last survivors of galactic civilization. As they passed through the barrier, the aliens discovered that they had not entered normal space, but had been transported to a pocket universe that existed parallel to their own reality. The technology required to create such a sanctuary was beyond anything they had imagined possible. Inside the human refuge, the aliens found not the primitive warmongers they had dismissed, but a civilization that had evolved beyond their understanding. Earth itself had been transformed into a massive shipyard where humans worked alongside artificial intelligences to produce vessels designed for preservation rather than conquest. The planet hummed with activity as humanity prepared to save species that had once scorned their efforts. Ambassador Jake Morrison greeted the refugees personally despite his advanced age, and his first words to his former colleagues carried no trace of anger or satisfaction. "Welcome to humanity's gift to the galaxy," he said simply, "a second chance to build something worthy of survival." His grace in victory shamed the aliens who remembered how they had dismissed his warnings and rejected his friendship. The refugee. Camps on New Terra were unlike anything the aliens had expected, as children of a dozen different species played together in parks, while their parents worked alongside human engineers and scientists. The sight of former enemies cooperating to build defenses for their shared future offered hope that galactic civilization could be reborn from the ashes of the old mistakes. Dr. Elena Rodriguez emerged from retirement to work with Thraxii scientists on a permanent cure for the plague that had consumed their people. Her research had advanced far beyond what she had left behind, and she shared her knowledge freely with beings who had once accused her of withholding medical secrets. The healing began not just for bodies, but for the wounds that pride and prejudice had inflicted on galactic society. Engineer Amy Stone supervised the construction of new space habitats designed to house billions of refugees when the evacuation was complete. Her designs incorporated lessons learned from the failures that had destroyed the old stations and included safety systems that even alien technicians could maintain. She worked with species that had once questioned her expertise and proved that cooperation could achieve what competition had destroyed. President Victoria Cross revealed that humanity had been planning Operation Sanctuary for decades as they watched galactic civilization stumble toward disaster. The humans had tried to guide the other species away from the mistakes that would doom them, but alien pride had made cooperation impossible. Rather than watch the galaxy die, humanity had chosen to save what they could and hoped that wisdom would grow from the seeds of survival. The final revelation came when Captain Lauren Hayes showed the refugees recordings of the Devourer swarms approach. The massive intelligence stretched across light years of space and consumed entire star systems as it fed on the energy of living worlds. No military force could stop such a creature, but humanity had found another way by creating sanctuaries where life could hide until the danger passed. As the last refugee ships entered the human sanctuary, the aliens finally understood what they had lost when they drove humanity away. The humans had not been the galaxy's warriors, but had been its gardeners, quietly tending the conditions that allowed civilization to flourish. In their absence, the garden had withered and died, but in their hidden refuge, the seeds of hope could take root again. The story ended with a new beginning as human and alien children learned together in schools that taught cooperation instead of competition. Outside their sanctuary, the Devourer swarm consumed the galaxy that had rejected humanity's wisdom. But inside the refuge, the future was being built by beings who had learned that survival required both strength and humility. Humanity had paid the ultimate price for galactic arrogance by saving those who had scorned them and proving that love could triumph over pride.